Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for another Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan Committee meeting, which I know we keep playing around with all of our acronyms. But right, we've been calling it the Pikesville Revitalization APC, just APC, PrEP, all those kinds of things. But it's good to see everyone. I don't know if we have one special new member, which I'll get to in a second, but I don't know, is anyone, I'm looking through the list quickly. It doesn't look like anyone else is new to our endeavor here, but I'll just quickly pause just to see if anyone unmutes and wants to introduce themselves. Okay, I don't think so. But I don't see that Gane from planning is on here, but so I am very excited to announce to you guys that the new District 2 planner has started, and you can see that she's on here with us. She has just started on Monday, and the two of us have only very briefly chatted, but she's really excited, brings a lot of energy and excitement, has been doing her reading already these past few days to read the action plan. And she's ready to delve in. So I'll let her certainly unmute. And if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, I'm sure they're eager to hear.
Michelle, I'm sorry, before I start, I'm on the phone actually. I'm having trouble connecting, but I'm listening. We are very excited about Alex, so I'm just going to let her introduce herself. Thank you.
Thanks, Gane.
All right, thank you. Right, so as Michelle mentioned, my first day was on Monday. I most recently worked for 3 years in the nonprofit community sector on affordable housing in Montreal. So I'm here from Canada. I've been living in Baltimore for a little over a year now. And I'm happy to be here. I look forward to working with you all on implementing the Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan. Like Michelle said, I did get to some reading and it's very interesting. I think the goals are achievable. And yeah, I look forward to working on it with you all.
Thanks so much, Alex. Like I said, I know they're very excited to have you, and everyone welcomes a fresh perspective and your input from your various backgrounds. Mel, you have a question already? Hold on, let me unmute you.
Got me?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Welcome, Alexandra. Welcome aboard. Have you had the opportunity in your brief stay so far to take a stroll around Pikesville?
Not yet. It's on my to-do list to go for a tour of Pikesville.
And take the plan with you, and you'll see the various elements that might be applied to various locations as you stroll around. And any of us would be more than happy to accompany you on that stroll.
Okay, I might reach out, and if anyone has any recommendations for where I could grab lunch if I am taking a tour of Pikesville, that would be great. Thank you.
Great, thanks to you both. So we have a sort of limited but could be lengthy agenda, and what we sort of thought is it was a good time to have a little bit of kind of a reset and a discussion to focus about the goals of the group and why we're here. And Larry's gonna share some stuff with us, but I wanted to try and first review some of the basics. Let me share. Okay, so I keep sharing this link, which planning has put a lot of time into Baltimore County's Pikesville Realization, which we sort of call our hub. And I put that, like I said, in the past few things, but just please use it as a guide and a reference, because you'll see obviously on the page it starts with the Pikesville Revitalization Action Plan, which actually is the plan, and the chart, which Larry is going to talk about a little bit more, it goes through certainly the purpose, the study area, but a lot of the documents are on here because there's been a lot of discussion sometimes about further input. And what we've said is that the planning department has really taken a lot of time in the past few years. And some of it may have changed because of COVID. So it's a good opportunity, like Deb has said, sometimes to look at the data and find out if it's still valid or anything's changed, but to use it as a jumping point. And so the parking study is on here. You'll see community input survey. Bill had compiled other statistics and documents, the notes from the various community input meetings that they did have is on there as well. And so we just wanted, there's other resources at the bottom. And so what we wanted to share, the map is also kind of helpful too, because I know it was one of Bill's suggestions to possibly just start focusing on one of the corridors within the commercial revitalization district, either it's central or neighborhood or suburban. But I think he had mentioned focusing on central. What was that, Deb? You wanted to see? Okay, hold on one sec.
If anybody else is seeing a white box that says rearrange videos in the stage. Is anybody else seeing that?
Just exit out. Just try pressing the.
Okay, so it's online. Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Is it better now? Okay. So we just wanted to review in the action plan. You'll see it has the let's get it up. Here we go. The council resolution is on here, and we just wanted to highlight the language that talks about the oh, I guess it cut off, but we have part of it in here, which says, oh no, it says the master plan, the revitalization action plan is hereby adopted and incorporated into the Baltimore County master plan to be a guide for any future redevelopment of the Pikesville Commercial Revitalization District, the CRD. And so we just thought it was important today to review that a lot of work went into this document and into the guide and into the plan, which outlines, as you know, the I'm just flipping through to get to the chart, but right, which outlines, which we reviewed a lot of this stuff earlier in the year, but we just thought it was a good chance to review it again together. It outlines fiscal years, it outlines lead partners, it outlines possible funding sources, and there's still room for creativity within them, but I think we just want to make sure that we're still really sticking to this chart and to the plan, because that's sort of why the county propped up this initiative. We certainly, like we said, are standing it up, and we hope that it's sustainable and hope that it's community driven and community led. But the funding that was allocated was to implement this plan, and the chart is really our guide. And so we just wanted to have a conversation to get a sense of commitment for those on here to follow the guide. That's why organization subcommittee, the project worksheets and the rubrics will be, scored, whatever they decide to sort of go up against. What goals does it match in the action plan? Are you following the partners and the contributors? Are you following the source of funds? So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and see, because I think Larry had put together some information where he sort of delve into this further, put information about the project, the action guide, against what the current proposals sort of are, and he was going to talk a little bit further about that. So if it's okay, Larry, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thank you, Michelle. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick. There we go. Can everybody see this okay? Okay, so I'm not going to read through everything and bore you all to death. All of you have seen this action plan guide and the summary and everything. But the reason we wanted to show this, essentially what we did is I highlighted the areas that just reassert what Michelle was saying, that, that the action plan committee is really is going to be implementing this guide. Everyone knows this, everybody's seen this, that their lead coordinators and partners, contributors are listed for each action item, and that those organizations should coordinate all efforts in completing the action. But I think it's key. One thing about the action plan guide is it's consistent more or less with the rest of the plan, but there are some larger goals in the plan that aren't necessarily listed in the action plan guide, though they are aligned. As Michelle said, we wanted to just kind of make sure we're all on the same page in terms of sticking to the action plan guide and the timeline. And if for some reason we deem it necessary to deviate from that, that there should be, real discussion about that because of all the effort and time and input that went into this. So I'll share this, after the meeting so everybody can peruse it at their leisure. But what I did here was in blue are we took summaries from the project summaries that everybody sent in and created columns for what subcommittee put a proposal in, the budget, if there was a budget, and then any additional information, basically the summary of what was put in that project proposal. So the ones, the rows in blue are proposals that were submitted, but aren't necessarily in line with the timeline specified in the action plan. So this is 23-24 for this one. In yellow are the first round of the timeline. Now, of course, we're offset by about a year because of COVID, though some of these I think were completed. So, we've got acquire additional marketing, promotional materials, et cetera. That's supposed to be 21 to 23. Some of these are things we haven't really talked about because they're not money proposals necessarily, and some are. So develop and coordinate community-friendly events, that's supposed to be ongoing. Then we've got commission artists to design and install a public art project. That says 22-23. Again, we're offset. So it's not necessarily that that's too soon. And then there are a few others that identify locations within the central business district where improvements would be most impactful. That's, of course, in the first year of the plan. We put in some of the Chamber of Commerce priorities that they had assessed that are cost estimates for streetscape improvements. So getting the cost estimates was in the first year of the plan, 21-22. And they already got some of those cost estimates because those are some of the things they included in their community legacy application, which was denied, a couple of years ago. And of course, that led to, or I guess contributed to the county earmarking some funds to address or to take care of some of the needs that were identified. Develop a guide that will assist property and business owners throughout the permitting process. That's also 21-23. And fostering landscape installations and improvements. That's something else that the chamber had looked into and got some quotes on and had in the community legacy application. So again, continuing to evaluate parking issues in the CRD and complete Pikesville parking study and inventory, which as far as I know was completed. So that's on track. Work with Maryland State Highway Admin to develop improved pedestrian crosswalk safety, 22-23. Anything else? I don't need to read I won't sit here and read everything to you, but you get the idea that we tried to highlight what should have been or should be done now and what is in here and what's aligned with projects, but may or may not be aligned with that time frame that's specified in the project, in the action plan, that is. I guess like Michelle said, we just want to make sure that we are all on the same page and that we do want to adhere to implementing what's in the action plan with fidelity, making sure we include all of the different partners and that the timeline or time frame is a big piece of it as well. And I guess we can open it up for discussion unless Michelle, you have anything to add.
No, I was going to say we definitely wanted to see if anyone had any feedback about what's been said. Yeah, and if you want to keep, I see Mel raising his hand, but and I see a few other hands too. So I'll just go in order actually of the hands that's on my screen. So I'll start with Kristen.
Yeah, thank you guys for that overview. I'm just a little confused because I feel like all of the subcommittees have been tackling projects on the guide, the action plan. Is there something that maybe you're trying to highlight that has been derailing something, or are you trying to allude? Because I'm thinking we're all kind of working on the plan. The timeline is difficult because it's just that's it's just very difficult because you wait for other people to approve, and sometimes the discussion takes a lot longer than you think it would. Is it implying that things will get knocked off if they're not done in time? Or I guess, what are you trying to ultimately rein in? Or was there something glaringly off that prompted this to refocusing?
Well, I guess I can comment first, if that's okay, Michelle.
Yeah.
We're not trying to rein anything in per se, and this is just really putting it out to the committee to take a look. I mean, for us all to take a look at our proposals and make sure they are aligned with what's in the plan. And to make sure the timeline part, what I was mentioning wasn't if we get it done in time, it's that some things might be in year 3 of the plan. So we probably, if we're adhering to the plan, we want to wait till year 3 to start what's in year 3, I guess what I'm saying. Most of the proposals in here, and you can see because it's all spelled out, are in year 1 or year 2. I say year 1 or 2 being 21, 22, or 22, 23. So in terms of that, I mean, pretty much everything that came in is aligned. And then the other piece is just making sure that the partners and contributors are involved in, hopefully we're involved in developing whatever project proposal went in. So really, we're not putting this out to say that we've assessed everything and are saying this is off, this is in, and we're just bringing this to everybody so everybody can take a look at the chart and compare what we have in proposals, because we don't want to go forward with evaluating using a proposed rubric until we all agree that, things should match up with everything in the plan if we find outliers. So I hope that's clear.
I think also just to add, Larry did an excellent job as always, but I think also just to remember that with the partners and the contributors, and that there's a core group of folks here dedicated and spending so much time, and we're so thankful. But we do want you to try and lean on the other county departments, the other partners, even though I know sometimes it's hard when I say they're all short-staffed or they're all and to make sure that we're also using that sort of community engagement piece also, that just sometimes I think to try and balance that excitement, and there's the money to spend, and but also, to try and say we want to be methodical and steady and make sure that we really are, following the plan, which reflects community engagement, but also, continuing to engage when we can. And then Mel is next on my screen. I can unmute you, Mel, if that helps. Okay, go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, thank you. Good job. A few questions. I'd like you, as we kind of discuss this, can you, Larry, kind of scroll that action plan so we can kind of review as we're discussing and the things that you've added and the indications you've made? Can you do that as we just slowly do that? That's number one.
And I apologize for not sending this out earlier so that everybody would have a chance to look at it while we're talking. But yeah, just let me know as we go where you'd like to look.
Keep scrolling through as we go that. This second item, tell me as we kind of look at this, what's the distinction between blue highlighting, yellow highlighting, and no highlighting?
Sure. So blue is projects proposals that were submitted, and some are aligned with everything in the plan, and some maybe a year or two in advance. And so that's part of what we're bringing to the committee is if it's, for example, hiring a public art consultant is in FY 23-24. So if we're not making a declaration, we're just saying we should be aware of that, so that if we decide not to stick to the time frame in that case, then we decide that. But I think we should have a serious discussion about if we're diverting from what the action plan guide spells out. What's in yellow, I just highlighted everything that's in year either is ongoing, so it starts right away, or things that are laid out for starting in 21, yeah, FY21 essentially, just so we get an idea of what we're supposed to be doing right now based on the action plan guide.
Hmm.
But we're not passing judgment on the our goal isn't to pass judgment on the worthiness of any of the projects. It's more just we're trying to.
So it's just highlighting the timeline in some color fashion. Yellow being the most imminent, lacking a better word. Blue being, I'm not sure the distinction of blue versus no color.
Well, blue has that, you'll see over here, like blue, there was a proposal submitted by Streetscape and Design. So blue means a project summary or proposal was submitted.
Mm-hmm.
And it may or may not be in the first year.
I got you. Okay, that's a distinction.
So yeah, it's probably a little confusing. I might have, maybe it should have been blue and yellow or green, who knows, something like that.
Well, I noticed that one F, G, and H were submitted by the Economic Viability Committee. And
yes, I think I put that in. Yes, and I noted that you had F, G, and H. I just put it in H because it seemed to fit most easily in here. That's not to say.
Okay, I got that part. It's kind of a summary of the three. Am I kind of hearing that? The summary of F, G, and H is kind of in that last column in H. Is that what I'm doing?
Okay. Yeah, I put in economic viability, the hard costs.
I won't trouble to read all that over there. And that I got it. And I got it. I understand. And you're using a two committee. I see. You got two committees. And let me just add to comment on. I don't know if that cleared up what Kristen was getting at, but so the timeline is critical. It is something. If I could, Michelle, take a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think
thank you.
right.
A little bit of background might be helpful.
Okay, I mean, it's just Mel. Just remind you. I mean, right? We will have a discussion about this.
We got started 10 minutes. We got started 10 minutes late. But at any rate, the thing about the timeline is very important. It's something that was never included in any prior revitalization plan. The two things that are critically different this time round, being someone who prepared one of them and was intimately involved in all of them, the timeline was never in any prior plan. And secondly, the ability for this committee to monitor and oversee that timeline is the real ingredient that makes the whole thing work. We have the ability, Kristen, to influence, urge, cajole a variety of different elements in the county government to try to meet those timelines that they committed to in this legislation. So just as something to bear in mind as we proceed. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, and I see Deb's hand next on my screen.
Okay, Kristen, Mel, you guys are looking at it from a high level. I'm going to get down in the weeds. Michelle and I had a long email conversation today about a marketing consultant versus a public arts consultant. What we have learned from talking with the Maryland State Arts Council is that a public arts consultant actually comes in and achieves a theme or identity for an area. So that is what we're telling the marketing person to come in and do. Only the public arts person is going to come in and do. If you bring the marketing consultant in and they say, we want little flowers all over the place, then you've got two things that can happen. You can have what they call plop art, because now everybody's just going to do little flowers and nothing means anything. Or you can have the public arts consultant say, hey, this is the theme. We're taking the lead. This is what the art's going to reflect. Art's a really, really big thing in this plan. So if you ignore that and you bring in somebody to just have flowers as our theme, you've missed the whole point. So I really feel that by us hiring a public arts consultant, we're hiring the beginning of the marketing plan. Okay, second, streetscaping. Michelle and I have spent weeks and weeks trying to figure out how to get the trees taken down that are there now before we can even put up new ones. State says it's county, county says it's state. So things are being worked on in the background that nobody's seeing. Let's move on to parking. We've got Revenue Authority, which now I learn is not even a Baltimore County department. They control those 3 main parking lots that we want to sign as, hey, you got free parking, you can park here. Izzy Patoka says he talked to the guys that Hill Management that own the Staples Shopping Center. They don't want to give up any of our parking. How do we go to Jilly's? How do we go to any of these places that own the parking lots and say we want to share parking? We don't have any tax incentives. We don't have any money to throw at them. We got nothing, absolutely nothing. Then if you want us to make a permitting process for the businesses, we haven't even made outreach to the businesses. So that's putting the cart before the horse. We got to talk to the businesses first. Maybe they don't, maybe even though we saw a couple of years ago that permitting was number 1 in their problems, maybe they have other problems. Maybe we're solving a problem that could be kicked down the road a year or so. So I think I'm getting a little hot and I don't want to. But I just don't think that looking at the blue and the yellow it's a good reminder, but I'm not sure it's really all that relevant.
Can I know you put yourself back on mute, Deb, but can I just ask you to elaborate on that last point of why you wouldn't think it was relevant?
Well, I'm not saying it's not relevant, but I think we need to understand that we don't understand each of these goals. We don't understand the roadblocks to them. And that truly, if we want a business owner to do something, we're powerless. Where's the incentive for a business to do something? We don't have that at our disposal.
Well, and I think what we're trying to say by having this conversation, or at least what I'm trying to say, I can speak for myself, is that I think that since planning put so much time into putting this together, is that's why they crafted the timeline. And as Larry said, like things can be adjusted, but we just want to have a conversation about it. And I think that they sort of thought through, start with some of the easier wins, or start with some of the visibility things, or start with some of the free things, start with getting feet on the street, and then, tackle the other things so that the chart is trying to help us, right? Like there's so many things we want to tackle, but let's actually look to what the community input was, what the business owner input was. Let's start with this. Let's look at the things that they've outlined for year 1. And, we can still continue all these conversations and the brainstorm, but try and help ourselves, right? And not tackling too much all at once, and use them as building blocks, and use the community leads, and use the partners, and, try and tackle, a project at a time, or a free thing with something that's, costs fund, needs funding.
Well, we're still struggling with the free stuff. I mean, we know that we can go out and pick up trash. That's free. But really, where are the free things? We can talk to business owners, but we don't know what we're talking to them about. Where are the free things? Where are the things?
Yeah, I'm just
we can't do that. What was just highlighted. Feasibility means we've got to have something to offer to these business owners. We can go, suppose we get 10 no's and the Revenue Authority says go up a tree. We're done. We're done.
Right. I could comment, but I think do others want Kristen, did you want to jump in, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on what Deb was saying. I can see the concept of trying to plan this when the planners did this to, okay, get the low hanging fruit first, things like that. But if you do that before the guidance is put in, before the overall overarching concepts and themes, then you're going to waste a lot of time and money. Just like here, there's $15,000 to put in signs, the little banners that go on the. So if you spend that money before we have a theme or before we have now that's wasted. We could have, that could be completely different than what the theme is. So to put the low hanging fruit first just because it's low hanging isn't necessarily it can be a wasteful. It's a possibility it could really just be, whereas it could have been done a year later and then it really would have tied in and made sense. So I agree with all the tasks and all the goals, but I think to adhere so much to the timeline might be a little limiting and wasteful, and we might end up just wasting a lot of time and money.
Okay, I see Ruth's hand next on my screen. Do you want me to I can go ahead and unmute you, Ruth, if that helps.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is a really enlightening conversation. I'm going to say something that is like going to frustrate people, but we're all a little frustrated already. And I know it's hard to turn an ocean liner around in the middle of the ocean, but we have like a big pot of money, like $150,000 or $140,000 to throw at this right now with these various projects that everyone is floating. But at the Armory, which is a 14-acre property, they took that money and they hired a consultant to create a master plan for the whole project. And the more I've been studying this for the last 2 weeks, I've been away watching all the emails go back and forth and talking to people, the more it seems to me that the problems that Deb and Kristen just cited and other things that have come up could be solved if we had one consulting firm, for example, that was looking at everything as a composite, as a whole. Our challenges for marketing and streetscape and traffic and public art and everything. That's what a consultant does with a master plan. The PRAP is not a master plan. It's to guide, it's gathered a lot of data to help guide this hypothetical consultant, of what we've identified as our challenges, our opportunities, our goals, but it's not really a master plan. And what Deb and Kristen are talking about, I think, is we need to take a step back maybe and look at a coordinated approach to the whole thing before we decide on banners here and theme colors there and putting traffic islands in the middle, over there. So I know that is different than how we've been approaching it with each subcommittee proposing their own project, but it's ending up being a pretty fractured, uncoordinated approach. And maybe we need to take a step, even though we're on a rush to see results, maybe we need to take a step back. Everybody there?
Yeah, can you hear me, Ruth? Okay.
Now I can.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'm gonna put you back on mute because there's a few other hands. Okay, thank you. And then next I see Jaren.
Thanks. Can you hear me? My audio okay?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, I guess in order, because I was going to respond to some of the things that were said. First of all, I think Deb brought up a lot of really good points. There's a lot of these objectives that seem to be intertwined. It's just a really hard thing, I think, for basically volunteers to try and coordinate from a high level, which things are which objectives are things that we can complete in the short term, won't necessarily impact or otherwise be connected to another objective. And I think that maybe it's worth taking some time to look through this from a sort of coordinated perspective, like if we go through, we may be able to identify objectives that aren't contingent on other objectives being completed or otherwise may not have an impact. But I'm starting to get the sense that a lot of these objectives are also sort of contingent on other things, coming to fruition. And so I think it goes back to what Ruth was saying. Maybe it would be best to have some sort of oversight into how to best execute on these goals. The goals, I don't think anyone is really um, arguing against. Like we all agreed that these all look great. But when it comes to the execution and also the responsibility for who has who has the responsibility to actually execute on these tasks, I think it's getting a little bit complicated. Deb brought up some really good points, like, if we want business owners to share their parking lots, if it's left up to the community, we don't really have the power to do that. And the same thing is true for maybe something like streetscape or infrastructure. If do we have the clout? Do we have the capability to restructure Reisterstown Road or gather the data to do that? I mean, the answer might be maybe, but I think it's really hard to prioritize this holistically. And my only concern, I guess, really is that if we miss on some of these, we may end up actually achieving the opposite of the goals we set out to achieve. Like if we make a recommendation based off of what we think is the best course of action to complete one of the action items without taking into account other action items that may be impacted, then we may end up messing up. So, not to say that I think anyone's come up with bad ideas, because I haven't heard anything I didn't like. But at the same time, I think that I'm starting to see the challenges associated with how each action item affects other action items. And I can think of quite a few examples, but I think I've taken up enough air time. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And then next is Tom. I see his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I think Deb and I talked about this. I'm not going to take credit for the comment, but we have a huge undertaking here, which we're trying to sort of manage by a committee that meets on a monthly basis. And some other actions which meet on a monthly basis. No can do. I think an effort of this size, and I'm not talking about $150,000 to spend now, because that's reasonably easy. We can all spend $150,000 easily. But we're talking about a multi-year effort, which eventually is going to take a lot more money than that, which eventually is going to involve a great number of community partners and business owners and local politicians and whoever. So what I think is that ultimately this effort does need a project manager, somebody who has the ability to look at the interrelationships through a complex Gantt chart, who has the ability to look at what needs to come first and what needs to come second, and quite honestly, to knock some heads together, because we don't have that. And I don't know how you get that, and I don't see that necessarily as an external consultant. I think it needs to be somebody, because consultants don't take responsibility. It could be a contractor, but it needs to be somebody who has the task of actually planning, controlling, and executing. And I think until we have somebody like that, and I don't know where it comes from, not my field, but I built lots of big projects, or I was involved in lots of big projects, and there was somebody who coordinate it all, because otherwise it just water on top of the table, and flows everywhere, and nothing ever really happens. And what you wind up with is a bunch of people who are all angry because 2 years or 3 years have gone by and we see no forward movement. I'm muted.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I really appreciate everyone's comments. Arlene is the next hand that I see on my screen. And if you need, Arlene, I went ahead and unmuted you if you want to go.
Okay,
ahead.
great. Thank you. First, I want to thank everybody for all their hard work, but I'm just curious, is there anybody on this committee that owns a business or used to own a business? And because I feel like we almost need a big investor or somebody to tell us, we could make the place beautiful and have the best design possible. But if we don't have the right businesses, and if we don't have the people telling us this is where we want to shop, this is where we want to have dinner, this is where we want to go and have ice cream, it's not going to work. When Mel and I and Deb and all, we went on the walk last couple weeks ago, and we were walking around, and then I went for another walk with a friend. A week later, I decided to go walk to the library and then the bank and then the drugstore and see the places that I actually wanted to shop at. There wasn't that many places, okay? And I asked one of a little boy who was walking with us during the walk what he wanted to see in Pikesville. And he wanted to see a place where kids could go and play, a game room or an ice cream parlor, or it's like a big picture, but we need business people. And I don't know if there's any on this committee. But if you think about the places that you shop, the places that you like to go to and what drives you there. A great restaurant, or a great bookstore, or just a place to have a cup of coffee. And there's none on the strip. So we need to think about that. It can't be just, flowers and flags and murals. It has to be more than that. It has to be, bricks and mortar. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Arlene. I'll put you back on mute. And Mel, you have your hand up. I'll unmute you there. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's a lot, and everybody's comments are perfect. What seems to be missing so far is synthesizing everybody's comments into some approach, and also segmenting this. It is a big, huge plan, as Tom said, purposefully done. It is, in fact, a master plan. It is adopted as such in the legislation. A master plan has meant to be a guide. It is not in concrete. It is not in stone. It is not meant to cross any T's or dot any I's. That's in fact the concept of a master plan. If one might prefer to call it a master approach, that's fine. As far as the Revenue Authority, there's a lot of stuff here. As far as the Revenue Authority is appointed by the council and the county executive. Anybody who's been in government knows what that really means and who is pulling the levers. What the Revenue Authority must do is have whatever goals and action is looked at meet certain financial prescriptions. In other words, it has to meet its obligations. It is, in fact, separate from the county government, but it is, in fact, influenced at the very least by the county government. This committee does have clout. Once the committee agrees to take a certain approach, that imprimatur before property owners, business owners, government officials carries weight. you should not be shy to use it. If I could segment something, there is a big plan. It needs segmenting. For example, one example is the traffic study, the plan. It's a grand plan as Neville Jacobs and his committee has devised. And it is worthy, all of it is worthy of exploration. In order to do that, you have to segment it. While at the end of the day, all of it must be coordinated. But in order to get to the end of the day, it's much more efficient, I think, and productive if that subcommittee, for example, segments that discussion. One of the elements is XYZ, the poles or the sidewalks being indented, and to present that to the committee for their imprimatur. Various other proposals, whether it's streetscape, whether it's murals, whether it's the armory approaches, whether it's that Pikes Peak Promenade in building up more bricks and mortars to add to that walkability, as Arlene, and someplace to go, as Arlene pointed out. It's all a long-term project. We're just planting seeds. And this committee, by its subcommittees reporting back to the full committee with its recommendation, and the committee taking charge to recommend one or the other or multiple of them. And if you also recall and review, that plan calls for a chair to be selected amongst the committee members. That may serve as at least a point person by which action can be focused. Those are my comments. I hope we can synthesize this all into taking action and moving forward. And banners and flowers are wonderful, but they're not the big picture that Howard and I envisioned. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Let me put you back on mute. I just want to check in with Larry really quick, not to put you on the spot because I see more hands, but I know Larry has to jump off at 7:30. So I don't know, Larry, if you have any comments before you jump off, and then do you want to still do a governance discussion, or do you think given this discussion, it's not the right time? I just thought I would check in with you first before we kept rolling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the cause of stopping this conversation. I think it's really useful. I think we can share the governance recommendations via email, and whether people want to chime in via email and even consider an email vote or have a meeting in between. I'm open to that. But yeah, I don't want to close this off.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going in order of hands of people that haven't spoken yet, and then we'll circle back. So Joan, I see that your hand is raised, and let me.
Thank you.
Oh, you unmuted. Okay, thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm not a member of this committee. I'm just a resident of Pikesville. And there was some discussion about deciding what we should, I assume it's deciding what we're going to put on Main Street. Was that the discussion? Whether we
Yeah, basically, right. I mean,
kids' place or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this whole, we've had a few meetings of this revitalization committee, and we're trying to follow the action plan guide, which was what Larry was sharing, and the chart. But we've been spinning our wheels a little bit. We've had some sort of stops and starts. So that's what the conversation tonight is sort of just about, how to regroup a little bit and how do people see this committee moving forward.
Okay. I was wondering if there's been a canvas of Pikesville residents to see what they wanted.
Some of that was done pre-COVID. That's what we're saying. That's why, the complications a little bit of this conversation was saying we do have data and we've had some community engagement done before. So we don't want to disregard that. We want to build upon it, but it was pre-COVID. And we do want folks to give their input. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And just from my own point of view, I agree with whoever it was who said there needs to be one overall plan. And then see where those steps fit in. Maybe make I don't want to take everybody back to ground zero, but I was thinking about a bubble chart where you list all the steps that you've thought of and then identify what other steps they relate to or what other steps they depend on to help sort of organize them.
That's great. That's really good feedback. Thanks, Joan. It's good to see you. And I see Jack's hand up. Jack, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. I know we've been talking about this, how we manage it as of now with our current operations, but I think we also need to look at the next step that's in our agenda, which is the recommendations for governance. Because I think one of the places we're losing it is we're getting recommendations to come out of the subcommittee, but it itself needs to vote on these, discuss them, and come up with an overall plan. I see that committee needing to be established sooner rather than later so that we can, in fact, let each of the subcommittees bring the issues to us, and then the committee can vote on which ones go into, which is number one, which is number two, which gets the funding, which can we do without the funding. So we need to have this committee organization complete to be able to move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else? I see Tom's hand up, but I just want to give anyone else a chance who hasn't spoken yet before I go back to Tom. If anyone who hasn't spoken yet wants to unmute, I'll just pause for a second. Okay, Tom, you want to go ahead?
I'm going to be really quick. One of the things that we have postponed too many times is a presentation by Neville. And one of the things that we really want to hear, I personally want to hear, is his discussion about the traffic question. I think that's in front of us. I think that's a live, substantial proposal. And I really wish that we don't postpone that another month. So if we can get on with that, I really would like to get on with it.
Okay, one of the things we proposed actually, which fits in a little bit with, or one of, not proposed, but we've been sort of bantering about, is possibly to also bring in speakers. So it looks like maybe we do want to have a governance discussion if people want to stay on, since it's 7:30, but usually we've been going till 8. But I can actually sort of skip to our last agenda item for next steps. And so we had talked, Neville and I had talked about October 13th at 7 o'clock, from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, doing a virtual meeting. And the only agenda item is to discuss his infrastructure plan. That's what we were saying. Either, you know, it may take less than an hour, may take more, but that is the only agenda item. And the other person that has also asked to present was the Pikesville Armory Foundation, was asking to present to the group their latest plans, the renderings for the armory, and to give an update. I know they were on at a recent meeting, but we didn't really have a lot of time for a robust discussion. So we had maybe proposed 2 meetings in October, or like not proposed, I keep saying that, sorry. It's been a long day. We had sort of talked, some of us had talked about having these 2 meetings in October, which gives governance also more time to meet and maybe get organized on the project worksheets and score them. And like I said, tonight we can still have that governance conversation if people want to stay on for half an hour and tackle them both. And then that gives Alex also a little bit of time to settle in. And if we do need to vote on anything, we can also, if we finalize the governance structure, can, you know, pull together like a quick voting session, but tackle those sort of 2 topics as a committee in October, and, you know, come back together in November and see if that works. So I'm just sort of throwing it out there if anyone has any comments about that. And I see, I don't know if Tom, Jack, and Mel, your hands are still up, but I don't know if they're new or still related to your old comments, if anyone wants to go. And Kristen now, I see. So I see Kristen nodding her head. So Kristen, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, I do want to have a meeting about infrastructure because I think Neville has a really in-depth plan. I'd like to hear about it. I know he had a meeting scheduled with Dana Stein and SHA. I believe that was the 3rd or sometime next week or in 2 weeks. Neville, will the 13th be too late? Are you okay with that date? Does that work in your timeline? Oh, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. The meeting on October 3rd is at the moment uncertain. I simply do not know whether we will hold that, whether we'll postpone it, or what we're going to do. But the meeting that we're planning for the 13th, I think would be fine. We'll discuss it at that time, and we'll see what we can do. I would kind of like to discuss some preliminary information and get some general input from you before that if I could, but I don't think that is in the cards at the moment. So I'm not pushing for it. But the meeting on the 13th, just out of curiosity, your meetings are generally 6:30. Would you prefer to do this at 6:30 to 7:30 rather than 7 to 8, Michelle? Have you got any preference there?
I usually just think if it's a 1 hour, I usually tend towards the 7. But like I said, that's just totally personally me trying to feed the kids and whatever. And then, but I'm here for you guys. So if you want to do 6:30, that's fine with me too.
I prefer 7 myself as well, kid reasons as well.
Okay, fine.
I started for the kid reason.
Always blame it on the kids, right?
It's definitely because the kid.
I've got no problem. Yes, I'd love to have the opportunity to share the information on those 3 long-term items. And thank you very much for bringing that subject up. I hope you can attend that meeting on the 13th. We will discuss it at that particular time. If there's any time tonight to mention anything about it, I'd be happy to do that as a sort of an introduction. But other than that, I'll leave it to Michelle to decide what she wants to do.
Okay, great. I think, well, I know Jack, like I said, we had on the agenda to discuss governance. So if there is time, but really quick, anyone else have any I know Mel, I see your hand is up, but right, if anyone has feedback, since we sort of jumped around in the agenda, but I'm sort of tackling the next steps now is this discussion. And like I said, I'm sort of proposing, certainly it sounds like there's wide agreement for the October 13th meeting because that's been asked for. And like I said, and then maybe another 1 hour meeting because the Armory Foundation has asked to present to the group their latest update. And like I said, it gives the subcommittee still time to, continue any work. But Mel, I see that your hand is up, so I'll turn it over to you.
Muted.
Now you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it is wise. Michelle, you've made a wise recommendation to postpone kind of the governance, as all important as it really is. There's no doubt about it. Jack is absolutely right. And I support Jack on that. But I think we should spend the rest of this evening. I'm running out of time too. But it's been a very good discussion about a lot of things. I think it'd be wise just to focus tonight and finish up the meeting with what are the action items to come in October or in November, as Michelle has kind of generally outlined, and try to make a decision on which items to approach when, and make a firm decision on that kind of agenda. I think it's wise to do that, and I think that's the way to make the most progress, in spite of the fact that it's very slow.
Okay, thanks, Mel. Anyone else, like I said, because anyone else have any thoughts about if you want to postpone the governance discussion towards via email? I mean, not postpone for tonight, but the document's ready. It's based on the feedback from our last meeting. and it's pared down also to the voting members, non-voting members, the quorum. So, hopefully it won't be that complicated to also, take a look at via email. And like I said, we can always reconvene shorter meetings on, specific topics versus longer meetings where we're trying to tackle a lot. But Tom, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, very quickly. I'm prepared to stay here till 8 o'clock and get an introduction to what Jack has to say about governance. I don't want to put crap off for another indefinite whatever and then start a meeting without any background on it at all. So if we can get started on it, I would be more than happy to sit here for another half hour. That's just me.
Okay, I think Larry had to hop off, so let me see if I can find the governance document because he sent me a Dropbox link to it, but of course the county email system, the county is saying like putting up a firewall, so it's not letting me open it. So let me open it, let me find it really quickly, and then I can share my screen. Okay, hold on one second.
Michelle,
Yeah.
I really think that we should wait. This has been, such a fulsome discussion. I think we should, even if we need to make a meeting for governance, but I think you can send the documents around and then we can have a discussion about it. That would be my suggestion. And also Larry is so key to this and was so much a part of, formulating, and I think it would be a shame to have a discussion about it without him being able to weigh in with clarification, etc.
Okay, let me at least, I pulled it up.
And we're all tired. We're all
Yeah.
very.
Well, I would
This is a
say, let
good
me just,
discussion.
since we have conflicting point of views to meet in the middle, let me just, like, I pulled it up. Can you see it on the screen? I can just quickly go through
Yeah.
it and then we can, follow up via email or a separate meeting later. But like I said, it's been pared down. Hopefully I have the latest one since I pulled it up quickly. And some of this language again is from the action plan itself. So it's just right that we decided to call it the Revitalization Action Plan Committee. It'll be comprised of Pikesville residents and our representatives from organizations based in Pikesville. The feedback was to separate the list from voting organizations to non-voting organizations. So the list is here. And then this might not be the most updated as I'm looking at it, but because the Maryland State Highway Administration is in here, but I don't think they should be. But you get the sense. And then the non-voting organizations, which again are usually the coordinators and the lead agencies that were listed in the action plan. I think we had discussed before, there's no term limits for any committee member and organizations. And then here's the language that the organization committee is proposing. I usually hate when people read it, so I feel like I'm doing that myself, the thing that I usually hate that people do. So I'll leave it up for a minute. This is the crux of sort of what we were talking about, which is what constitutes a quorum and voting members. And this is
Trying
basically
to turn down the light. Can't figure it out.
this is basically the crux of what we were discussing. But so yeah, I recognize that Larry is key. If anyone does have any, after taking a second to read it for a minute, for a few moments, if you do want to, provide any feedback.
I got it.
I think that'd be helpful.
Do you need your
I see some hands up, but I don't know if there's still Mel, Ruth, are your hands up from before? Anyone want to weigh in?
Yes, so
Yeah.
it says for the voting members, and above there was like all the different, one, I'm guessing one member from each community organization.
Yeah, I think we took, I wonder, like I said, sorry that I pulled this up quickly, so I wonder if I do have the latest, or there was that language in one of the versions that said each organization should have one designated representative and one proxy
Okay,
for voting purposes. So it's the organization that gets the one vote, not the person. And we would leave it up to the organization to designate who your voting person is, who your representative is,
Mhm.
who your proxy is, so that if they're not there, you know, it gives you the opportunity at least to have two people to cover to be present for, you know, only one vote, but the option of two people to take the responsibility.
so can you scroll up so I can see who the
How do I get out of this?
communities? Because I'm thinking,
I want to end it here.
is there one person
I am.
from these involved with us? You know, someone like maybe the Maryland State Highway Administration, they may not be familiar with the marketing committee, and for them to vote on it, is they're not involved in PrAC like everyone else is. That's all. I'm just wondering, like, how intelligent are the votes going to be if they hear nothing but then just come in to vote?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Maryland State Highway Administration is supposed to be on here, but take, you know, another neighborhood example is I think the goal was to have a strong subcommittee system so that if the subcommittee has voted on something, put a proposal forward, has submitted a project worksheet, or even submitted a proposal, something that doesn't, you know, require a funding ask, the organization committee, if appropriate, like they're gonna score the project worksheets, but even if it's something else, it's discussed, a full discussion, and then there's notification for a vote, and that there is reliance on the subcommittees. If a subcommittee's brought something, you know, for a full vote and they've vetted it, I think there's going to be the understanding, you know, to certainly give that weight, you know, that it's already gone through a lot of vetting. So I think that was sort of the intention, but just to at least have some sort of process to move things forward. Anyone else have any comments? Quick comments. Like I said, we'll share the document via email, and I'll make sure before I do that this is the correct version is shared. But this is certainly the crux of it. But anyone have any other initial reactions or thoughts that they want to share? You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I guess we're back to trying to get the property and business owners together. I know we had discussed that. Maybe that's something we can be working on.
Yeah, I mean, not to cut you off, Deb, but right, we had sort of a nebulous category at first that said, you know, business and property owners, and then I think the consensus was for now to take that off the voting list, but with the hope, like at one point, I think we had some language in there saying like we will work towards, you know, the goal of figuring out what what that voting category is and how to get them in, but since there was a lot of back and forth about the structure, we tried to sort of like pare down what can be agreed upon now so that it won't hamper us. And, you know, we can try and get some sort of structure in line. And so since we don't have at the moment a very active property and business owner group, we took it off. But the goal would certainly be to have them be voting members, but to figure out what form that takes.
Right, and the rationale behind Kai being on the list?
I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure this list was taken from the action plan. That those were who gave input and who were involved. But again, open for, you know, like I said, we're not going to vote on this tonight because we said it's getting late and everyone's seen it for the first time. But certainly open for discussion. So.
Does anybody see any community organizations that are missing from there that they think should be included?
Or ones that they're questioning, like Kai or the Maryland State Highway Administration. Thanks, Deb.
I mean, Ralston should be there, but they're not active. So it's like, how do you get anybody from Ralston?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of also the same as the business and property. Like there's probably the list where we want to be at, but we didn't want to hamper, right, balancing what we have and where we want to be in terms of and it's all fluid, right? All of this can always be once we have the structure, you can always vote to amend the bylaws or the governance structure. But right, just to start with something.
Right. And as far as businesses, you would think that maybe Greater Baltimore Chamber of Commerce, maybe Beth would speak for the businesses, I suppose, rather than, the guy from Jilly's coming in and.
Right. Yeah. To have some sort of structure at least to begin with.
Debbie, Michelle, can you hear?
Yeah.
Hi, I have no idea how to do this on my phone, so I'm glad you can hear or see me. I can't see you. I think maybe everybody can digest the document offline and then come back with a
Right.
discussion.
Yeah, that's what we said.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand why. I think I understand why High, for example, was on there. But my feeling is there will be other organizations or associations that will request to join, just like with the Northwest Baltimore Partnership. Maybe I'm thinking, like, I can't remember if Ralston is on there, but like Dumbarton, which is across from the club, or or Pine Ridge. No, Pine Ridge is on there, but I have a feeling, or one, 7 Slade, 1 Slade, 11 Slade, we're like a half a block away from the commercial corridor. I'm not saying they will join, but I think there's a potential to add more, to be more inclusive and add more members as we go on. I think this was just like a way to get started.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruth. Anyone else want to unmute and have any other, again, just initial thoughts, reactions to this governance document? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. That way I can see everyone a little bit better. So we will, Mel, do you have your hand still up? Do you still have comments? Hold on, let me unmute you.
He's right on
Okay,
target.
Mel, did you still have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Yeah, just quickly. I have to step off really now, but I think the recommendation is good, that we're going to get a hold of this document that Larry's thoughtfully put up. And I think I would suggest that everybody review it, express their thoughts in writing for their concerns or recommendations to Larry on this governance structure, so that kind of everybody's in line. And in that way, it might facilitate less discussion, so to speak, at the October meeting, and focus a lot more on Neville's presentation for some kind of a full discussion of that. That's what I would suggest.
Okay, thanks. But
Great.
actually, what I was suggesting is, hold on one sec. That the October 13th meeting, that's why we made it at 7 o'clock. The only agenda item actually will be to discuss Neville's infrastructure plan. And we will also open it up to any, you can invite your own members for that too, because what we're talking about discussing is a major, plan for Pikesville. So the more input we have, I think, the better. The point of that meeting would be for Neville really just to share his plan and his ideas and update where he is and purely get feedback. And then, like I said, and then if there's the appetite for it, another 7 o'clock meeting, possibly for the Armory Foundation to share their updated information. Again, that's the only agenda item that will give time for the subcommittees to still work on their projects, work on your project worksheets, organization to possibly score them, organization to get the feedback for this governance document. And then also we can figure out maybe, like I said, the November dates, the December dates, get them on our calendar, get the topics. And I think those are those are our next steps. And like we said, we won't all bombard Alex all at once, but we'd be very excited for her point of view and perspective. And like I said, then this schedule sort of allows for time for that as well. So that's probably a good way to end it in case anyone has any good for the order. But like Larry said, I think it was such a valuable, fruitful discussion. I hope you guys feel that way too. I'm sure organization subcommittee will digest all of these suggestions and formulate a little bit of a plan now that we hopefully will get governance situated soon too, but they can give some recommendations based on everyone's feedback about how to, proceed in the future. But if anyone has any last minute parting thoughts, but again, I just really want to thank everyone. It's a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of dedication. And so I'm just really, thankful to get to spend the time with you guys and for the constructive conversations. I really do value it and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sure.
We appreciate you, Michelle, as well.
Yes, we do. I'm
Definitely.
sorry
Even
you're
though
in
we
the-
bombard you, we do appreciate you. Thank you.